Hello everyone. Let's discuss well test pressure transient analysis in this particular session. I will be covering introduction to well test, types of reservoir flow, wellbore storage, skin, effective elbow radius, radius of investigation, principle of superposition, build up and in build up specifically Horner plots, drawdown test, gas well testing, diagnostic plots, type curves, and gate petroleum engineering numericals. Coming to the introduction of well testing, pressure transient analysis, or commonly termed as PTA, will give quantitative analysis of reservoir properties. Okay, over here this term is very important. Quantitatively, it will give us the reservoir properties. PTA is conducted by creating a pressure disturbance in the reservoir by changing the flow rate skew and recording the pressure response at the well bore. Okay, now let's look at this particular figure. What I'm doing over here is at the wellhead I'm changing my Q. Okay, I'm changing my flow rate. Now because of this changing in flow rate, okay, before changing the flow rate I have kept a recorder. See, you can see that I have a recorder in the well. Okay, and because of this changing in flow rate, now let's take the example of this particular figure. Assume that this is my reservoir. Okay, this tank is my reservoir. Now because of the changing in flow rate, I am creating some sort of a pressure disturbance in the reservoir. See, my pressure disturbances are moving away from the wellbore. See, now with time my pressure disturbance will reach the boundary of the reservoir. Alright, now the pressure recorder over here, see the pressure recorder, the pressure temperature gauge over here, what it does is that it will continuously measure my changing pressure response. Okay, now from this pressure response I will conduct various studies and I will come up with the quantitative analysis of reservoir properties. Okay, so this is how well testing works. Now example, flowing bottom hole pressure is recorded as a function of time. Okay, let's say I'm going for a drawdown test. At that time I will measure this flowing bottom hole pressure. Now coming to types of well test, it can be a single well test or we can go for a multi well test. In single well test we can have build up study, drawdown, injectivity, fall off, whereas in multi well test we can have interference test. Okay, now let's move further. Build up test. It involves measuring the variation of sand phase pressure with time while well is shut in. The well must have flowed at constant rate before shut in. Now the information derived from the test are average reservoir pressure or the initial reservoir pressure, permeability, skin factor, flow efficiency, and distance to linear no flow barrier. Okay, now average reservoir pressure and initial reservoir pressure. Let's say I have a new well, I have drilled a new well. At that time, let's say if I have gone for a build up study, then I would have got initial reservoir pressure. Alright, now let's say I have a well and I have produced it for some period of time. For example, I have produced it for let's say 20 years. Okay, and after 20 years, now if I'm going for a build-up study, at that time whatever pressure I am obtaining will be my average reservoir pressure, because I won't be obtaining the initial reservoir pressure because depletion would have occurred in that particular reservoir, and because of the depletion my initial reservoir pressure would have gone down, and whatever pressure I am recording at the sand phase by well shut in, I will get average reservoir pressure instead of initial reservoir pressure because the reservoir has undergone depletion in this case. Okay, now coming to permeability, as we know effective permeability is recorded. What I am talking about is the effective permeability, and again effective permeability, we know effective permeability equal to multiplication of my relative permeability into absolute permeability. Now skin factor, again skin factor, we know skin is a region of altered permeability near the wellbore. Okay, so we can quantitatively come up with the value of skin once we have done build-up test. Flow efficiency, as we know my flow efficiency, the productivity index of actual to the productivity index of ideal. Okay, and we have discussed this in detail when I was talking about nodal analysis. At that time I have discussed this thing in very much detail. Fifth point, distance to linear no flow barrier. Now let's say I have a well, let's say I have a reservoir, rectangular reservoir. I have a well over here. Okay, now let's say I have some fault over here. I have a fault over here. Okay, that means it is a non-communicating fault. So even with the help of build-up test, I can even identify at what distance this particular fault will be there. Because let's say my pressure disturbances, see now let's say I have at time t equal to 0, at time t equal to 0 I have started my well testing. Okay, now I have stopped my flow rate. That means I have taken well shut in. At that time my pressure pulse will develop. Okay, now this pressure pulse will go out. Okay, and at this particular point my pressure will now come back. Okay, it will come back and a disturbance will be created in the pressure response which I am taking from the recorder in the well bore. Okay, so I can even identify what will be the distance. Okay, because of this pressure disturbance, and it can identify that this particular disturbance has been occurred because of this particular fault which is present at some distance. Okay, so there are correlations which we will use to identify at what distance this particular disturbance was there. Okay, from that I can identify the no flow barrier. Plus I can also identify what type of a barrier it is. Let's say is it at 180 degree or it is at some 90 degree. Okay, I even have some mathematical tools which can even detect at what angle this particular barrier is there. Okay, we can have in Horner plot. When I will discuss Horner plot, at that time I will discuss how to determine the angle of the barrier present. So let this be the well bore. Okay, let this be the well bore. I have a reservoir, this is the perforation, and I have a tool in the well bore. Okay, I will always keep the tool 10 to 20 feet above. Okay, let's say I will keep my tool 10 feet above my perforation. It's necessary to keep the tool 10 feet above the perforation. All right. Okay, now I have the tool in the well bore. Okay, now initially what I did, that again a very important point is that before going for a build-up test I should have flowed the well at constant rate. So you can see that I have prior to build-up I have flown the well at some constant rate. Okay, and this is my pressure been recorded. Okay, now at this point, at this particular time, I have now shut the well. Well is shut. Well shut. Okay, now because of this well shut, my pressure will start to develop. My shut-in pressure will start to develop, and this is build-up. Okay, this particular portion is my build-up where I have shut the well and I am recording the pressure. And again, a very important point: I should have flowed the well at constant rate prior to shut-in. All right. Okay, now let's move further. Coming to drawdown test. It involves measuring the variation of sand phase pressure with time while the well is flowing. For a drawdown test, well is shut in long enough before the test to attain uniform pressure in the reservoir and is produced at a constant rate. See, you can see that prior to drawdown test, I have shut the well. Okay, so that I can attain the uniform pressure in the reservoir. Okay, and the corresponding PWF is this. This is the shut-in pressure. Okay, and after this shut-in only I will go for a drawdown and I will take this particular region is drawdown region, and I will take special attention that produce at constant Q. Now on producing the constant Q, whatever pressure recorder I have in the well bore, it will record this flowing bottom hole pressure. Continuously it will record the flowing bottom hole pressure with time. Now the information derived similar to build-up, it will derive as permeability, skin factor, reservoir drainage volume, it is a new thing, flow efficiency, distance to linear wellbore, linear no flow boundary, and the type of reservoir boundary. Okay, so these things can be obtained when I am going for a drawdown test. I will discuss these things in detail when I take up drawdown test. Now, as of now, let's move further. Coming to the fall-off test, this is the counterpart of a build-up test, and it involves measuring the variation of sand phase pressure with time while the well is shut in. In this case, some fluid must have been injected into the well bore before shut-in. I am injecting the well. Okay, so this particular fall-off test is applicable for injector wells only, whereas my drawdown and build-up test it was for the producer wells. Fall-off test is for an injector well. Okay, so prior to the fall-off test, this is my fall-off test time. Prior to fall-off test, I will inject some amount of flow rate. I will inject some amount of fluid into the reservoir at constant rate. At Q constant, I will inject some pressure over here. As I am injecting, my pressure will rise, which is very obvious. Okay, now at this point, now I have shut the well. At this point, I have shut the well, and I can see a reduce in the pressure because I have stopped the injection. As a result, I can see a reduction in pressure. Okay, and so this particular thing is my fall-off test. All right. Okay, now let's move further. Coming to the injectivity test, this is the counterpart of a drawdown test and involves measuring the variation of sand phase pressure with time while the fluid is being injected into the well. So you can see that as I am injecting my fluid in the well into the reservoir, you can see that my pressure is rising. Okay, so this is my injectivity test. Again, this is the counterpart of a drawdown test, whereas when we were discussing fall-off test, it was the counterpart of build-up testing. All right. Okay, again this particular test is applicable for an injector well only. Coming to the interference test, unlike the first four tests, which is drawdown, injectivity, build-up and fall-off, which are tests involving only one well, single well test, interference test involves the use of more than one well or the multiple well test. Interference test is a multiple well test. In the initial case, drawdown, build up, fall off and interference, we were talking about a single well test, but this is a multiple well test where more than one wells will be involved while well testing. During interference test, pressure changes due to the production or injection or shut-in at an active well is monitored at an observation well. Now let's say I have a reservoir. Okay, I will be having one active well, and I can have more than one observation well. Okay, so this is my active well, and this is my observation well. Observation well A and observation well B, and whatever changes I am doing at this active well, I will record the response at this observation wells. All right. Again, there will be one active well, and there can be more than one observation wells. Now, only one active well is required, but there could be more than one observation well. Information obtained are permeability. Again, this is the effective permeability that I am talking about. Storativity, anisotropy orientation, and sand continuity. Now, coming to storativity, as we know, storativity is S is equal to capital S is equal to phi into CTH, where phi is my porosity, CT is the compressibility of the fluid, and H is the height of the reservoir. As we know, storativity means how much fluid can be stored in a given pore volume, and it depends on obviously porosity, total compressibility. All right. Now coming to transmissibility, transmissibility is indicated or shown by capital T is equal to kh by mu. Transmissibility means how easily a fluid can flow across a given porous media. Okay, so that's what transmissibility is all about. As you can see, the storativity is here. Coming to transmissibility, you can see that there are various channel flow paths over here. Okay, so transmissibility means how easily a particular fluid can flow. See, you can see that there are many flow paths, and how easily the fluid can flow through these flow paths is indicated by the transmissibility term. Okay, now coming to third part, which is anisotropy. Now you should understand what's the difference between an anisotropy and an heterogeneity. Anisotropy is a directional term. Okay, it is a directional property, whereas heterogeneity is for a spatial variation. Spatial variation. That means, let's say in a reservoir, if I'm talking about directional anisotropy, then my kx, that is my permeability in the x direction, will be different as compared to the permeability in the y direction. Okay, that means anisotropy means my properties are changing with direction. So that's anisotropy. Now coming to heterogeneity, let's say in heterogeneity, let's say I have a cube over here. Let's say I have a 3D reservoir. Okay, then heterogeneity means that at each and every point, that is in the spatial variation, I can have a variation in my rock property. That means at this point my rock property will be different, this point my rock property will be different, and this point my rock property will be different. Okay, so that's the basic difference between an heterogeneity and an anisotropy. Now let's discuss the next point, which is sand continuity. Now if let's say I have a reservoir, I have a rectangular reservoir, I have one well over here, this is my active well, I have one observation well, O1 observation well, O2 observation well, and O3 observation well. Now let's say this O3 well is in a different sand, completely different sand, and these O1 and O2 are in completely different sand. That means there is some difference in sand continuity. Alright, okay. Now, as we know, I will create pressure disturbance in my active well. Okay, I will create pressure disturbance in my active well. Alright, now as the pressure disturbance will reach to the observation well, the pressure recorders in the observation well will record my pressure responses. Now, since this O3 well is in a different sand layer, I can have a different set of a pressure being recorded at O3 well, and this O1 and O2 will have almost similar pressure response because both of the well lies in the same sand. Okay, so by using this interference test, I can even identify whether there is some sort of a sand continuity or not, because it will be obvious that if the wells in one sand will have a similar set of a pressure response, whereas if my observation well is in a different sand, I may have a different pressure response. Okay, so that's what sand continuity over here means. All right, okay, now let's move further. Again, let's look at this particular diagram. I have not discussed this particular diagram. Let's discuss this particular diagram. You can see that again this particular indicate this this particular diagram is for a sand continuity. Active well, I will change the flow rates, and in the observation well where I have the pressure gauge, I will record the responses. Okay. Now, if it is a sand continuity is there, then I will record I will have a proper recording of the pressure response. Alright, I will be recording. Let's say I will be doing a this is a drawdown, this is a build up, again drawdown. Okay, so I will be doing such simultaneous set of testing of drawdown and build up, and corresponding pressure I will be recording over here. Alright, when I am going for a drawdown, you can see that my pressure is going down. When I am going for a build up, my pressure is going up because I have shut the well. Again for drawdown, my pressure will go down. Okay, so I will get a set of pressure recording over here. Now let's look at this particular diagram. Let's say I am discussing this Q1 case. Now I am recording. I have started to flow my well at Q1 constant rate, and this is my pressure recorder over here. Let this be the skin region. This is the region for skin, and this is the region for original reservoir. As we know, I have drawn the pressure profile over here. This is my pressure profile. Okay, that means this is my initial reservoir pressure, this is my P initial, and this is my PWF or the flowing bottom hole pressure. This is the pressure profile. Alright, okay. Now, if I am flowing at Q1, okay, so I will get some pressure profile. Okay, I will get some pressure profile over here. Now I will be continuously recording this flowing bottom hole pressure with time. So you can see that with time I am continuously recording my pressure profile by using this pressure recorder in the well bore. Alright, okay. Now in case 2, now what I did is that I have shut the well. Now in Q2 means I have shut the well. Now you can see my pressure is building up. Okay, that means once I shut the well, then I will obtain a constant shut-in pressure. Okay, you can see it's a shut-in pressure, and then with time my pressure is rising. So you see, with time my pressure is rising. Okay, now I have not conducted this test for an infinite period of time. Let's say if I would have done this testing for infinite period of time, then my pressure, shut-in pressure would have risen. See, I am indicating with an arrow. My shut-in pressure would have reached this particular point. This would be my initial reservoir pressure or an average reservoir pressure. Okay, then this case is only possible when I would have shut the well for an infinite time, infinite shut-in time. Okay, since I have shut the well for some finite period of time, my pressure response I have recorded at this particular point. This is my pressure response that I have recorded. Okay, now by using build up, when I discuss Horner plot, at that time by using this Horner plot, if I would have gone for a finite shut-in period also, I can, by extrapolation, I can come up with a value of my infinite or an average reservoir pressure. Okay, there is a provision in Horner plot when we will discuss Horner plot in detail, at that time I will discuss it again, that by using extrapolation, that means if I have gone for an infinite, or if I have gone for a finite, or if I have gone for a short period of well shut-in, by using the extrapolation, I can identify what will be my infinite or an average reservoir pressure. So that's one of the advantage. That means without even going for an infinite period of shut-in, I can identify what will be my infinite or an average reservoir pressure. So that's one of the advantage of a build-up test. All right. Okay. So now let's talk about Q3. After my shut-in, again I have started to flow at constant flow rate Q3. Q3 is equal to constant. I have started flowing it, and I have recorded my pressure over here, and again I will get some pressure profile. Okay. Now you can see that my flowing bottom pressure is going down. Okay. This is for Q3 range. So this was for Q2 and this is for Q1. So this is how you record. This is how you do a well testing. All right. Okay. Now let's move further. Now, let's discuss types of reservoir flow. There are three main types: transient, steady state, pseudo steady state. Pressure transient migrates outward from the well without encroaching or without encountering any boundaries. That means my dP by dt is a function of distance and time. Now you can see that this is a very beautiful figure. Over here, this is my map view of a wellbore. This is the cross-sectional view of my wellbore. Now this dark line indicates the boundary. This is my boundary region. In the cross-section, this is my boundary region. For a transient state, so I have indicated for time 1, 5, 10, 25, 20, 50. For this time, my pressure response is moving outwards. You can see very clearly. So you can see that in the cross section also, my pressure responses, you can see my pressure responses is moving outwards, but it has not reached the boundary. Okay, since it has not reached the boundary, this particular flow is my transient flow. All right. Okay. Now coming to steady state flow, my pressure transient has reached all the boundaries, but the static pressure at the boundary does not decline. This is often called a constant pressure boundary. That means in this particular term, my dP by dt is equal to 0. In my steady state condition, my dP by dt is equal to 0. So you can see that with time of 1, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, my pressure response has reached the boundary. See, the map view also you can see, in the cross-sectional view also you can see, my pressure response has reached the boundary. This is my boundary and pressure response has reached there. Okay, once I reach the boundary, this is my constant pressure boundary, and because of this boundary being a constant pressure, my dP by dt, that means my reservoir pressure will not decline with time, and my change in reservoir pressure with time will be 0. All right. Okay. Coming to the pseudo steady state flow, in this particular case, my pressure transient has reached all the boundaries, and the static pressure is declining at the boundary and uniformly throughout the reservoir. Okay, in this case, in the cross-sectional view of this pseudo steady state condition, you can see that my pressure response has reached the boundary. At time t is equal to 100, my pressure response has reached the boundary. Okay, now with further time, my pressure is declining. Okay, now this case is for a depletion case. Now once after reaching the boundary, my static pressure is declining constantly. That means my dP by dt is equal to constant. For a pseudo steady state, for a PSS condition or a pseudo steady state condition, my dP by dt is constant. So you can see that my pressure is declining constantly. Alright, so this is a PSS state or a pressure decline state. Again, this particular case will be valid when my pressure response has reached the boundary and my pressure is declining, and it is declining uniformly throughout the reservoir. Alright, okay. Now let's discuss this particular figure. Again, this particular figure is with pressure versus distance, and you can see that initially and this particular trend is for with increasing time. Okay, now initially at small times my pressure response has not reached the boundary, so this is a transient flow regime. This yellow line indicates my start of a pseudo steady state condition. That means my pressure response has reached the boundary, and now with time you can see that my delta P is declining constantly throughout the reservoir. See, throughout the reservoir my delta P is declining constant. Okay, so this would be at time for time t1, and this is for time t2. For time t1 I have p1 reservoir pressure throughout, and for time t2 I will be having reservoir pressure p2 throughout. All right, so now let's move further. I have taken this particular figure from Fekete.com. Now let's discuss another case where I have a boundary dominated flow. In this, my pressure transient has reached all the boundaries and the static pressure is declining at the boundary, but not uniformly because the flow rate is not kept constant. This is often called a tank type flow. So you can see over here is that I have not kept my flow rate constant. My flow rate is not equal to constant, but over here I have kept a constant flowing bottom hole pressure. My flowing bottom hole pressure is equal to constant I have kept. So you can see that I have kept a constant flowing bottom hole pressure. So initially at smaller time I will get transient flow regime. This point is my start of a boundary dominated flow, and now with increasing time for T1, T2 and T3 you can see that my pressure decline. My change in pressure is not constant throughout. See, at this particular point that is near the wellbore region, my delta P is something different. Over here my delta P is different, and over here my delta P3 is also different. That means in this case my delta P1 is not equal to delta P2, that is not equal to delta P3, where delta P1 is my near wellbore, whatever pressure response I have got at the near wellbore, delta P2 at some distance from the wellbore, okay, and delta P3 at the boundary. Delta P2 is in the reservoir, okay, and delta P3 is in the boundary. So you can see that my delta P, that is my change in flow pressure, is not constant throughout. Whereas in my pseudo steady state condition, when I was talking about in pseudo steady state condition, at that time my delta P1 equal to delta P2 equal to delta P3. That means at the near wellbore, at the reservoir and at the boundary, my pressure response, that is change in pressure response, was the same. Okay, so this is what a pressure. So this is a case of a boundary dominated flow, and this is also termed as a tank type flow. Boundary dominated flow is also termed as tank type flow. Again, I took this particular diagram from Fekete.com. Coming to effect of depletion, the flow of hydrocarbons through a porous media can be divided into transient and boundary dominated flow periods. We have already discussed this. When a well has reached the boundary dominated flow, its behavior is governed by the pseudo steady state equations. Alright. Now again, for pseudo steady state equation, that means my dp by dt equal to constant. When the reservoir is in PSS or a pseudo steady state flow and the flow rate is constant, the pressure at all the locations in the reservoir declines at the same rate. Again, what I mentioned is that, let's say this is my delta P1, that is near the wellbore, this is my delta P2, that is in the reservoir, and this is my delta P3 at the boundary. So my delta P1 equal to delta P2 equal to delta P3, and all the three will be equal to constant. That means the change in pressure will be constant at the near wellbore or in the reservoir or at the boundary. Now the diagram depicts pressures in the reservoir at all the locations where the wellbore is located at the left hand side and the exterior boundary of the reservoir at the right hand side. Again, this is my wellbore and this is my boundary. Each of the limit lines 1, 2 and 3 represents the pseudo steady state pressure in the reservoir when the well is flowing at a constant rate. So you can see that for a constant rate production I have maintained this. So again, with time you can see my pressure, you can see how my pressure profile is changing. Okay, now again, why this is changing? Because of the process of depletion. Again, let's say if I would have conducted a well testing or a well testing at the initial stage, then I would have got this point. This would have been my pressure profile, where this is my initial reservoir pressure. Okay, now with time, as we know, as I am depleting my reservoir, my average reservoir pressure will also go down. So average reservoir pressure is also going down. Okay, because of depletion, which is very obvious. All right. Okay. Again, this particular figure I have taken from Fekete.com. Now let's move further. Now this is a very important gate concept, and this particular question has been asked in gate. Now let's look at this. I have discussed this particular case for a pseudo steady state condition or a PSS condition I have discussed. That means dp by dt is equal to constant at any distance r. Now again, obvious, my pressure over here throughout my delta P will be same. Okay, and delta P1, delta P2, delta P3, and with time my pressure will go down because of depletion. All right. Okay, now again, if I am taking at T1, if I am recording P1 as my have boundary pressure, that this will be the P1 at time T1, this is my P1, P2 at boundary, P3 at boundary, and P4 at boundary. Okay, so you can represent that P1, P2, P3, P4. So at the boundary also, whatever pressure I am recording, it will go down, which is again obvious. Okay, with time, because of depletion. This particular process is because of depletion. My pressure is going down. Now let's look at this concept, a very important numerical over here, a very important concept rather. So as we know, my C or the compressibility equal to 1 upon V minus 1 upon V upon into dV by dP. Now if I am rearranging my C into V into dP is equal to minus dV. If I am taking dV as my subject of equation, I will get this. Now differentiating with respect to time, I will get my CV into dP by dt equal to dV by dt. Now dV by dt is equal to my flow rate. Now taking dP by dt as the subject of equation, I will get minus Q by CV. Alright. Now expressing this decline rate, that is dP by dt decline rate in PSI per hour. Okay. Now if I want to express it in PSI per hour, what I will do is that I will divide by 24. Okay. Now once I divide by 24, this is what I will get the expression, where dP by dt is equal to minus Q by 24 into CV. Okay. This is in reservoir condition. Now if I want to express it in stock tank condition, I will multiply BO. Alright, now this V over here, capital V is my pore volume. Again, we know for pore volume, that means for a drainage or radial drainage system, my pore volume is V is equal to pi r square H upon 5.615. Okay, now if I'm talking about a radial case, let's say this is my radial case and this is my well bore, and RE means my radius of the reservoir. Okay, RE over here, RE means my radius of the reservoir, H means my height of the radial reservoir, 5 means my porosity. Divided by 5.615 is my conversion factor. So if I place this, my area will be in feet square, H will be in feet. Alright, okay. Now placing this V, whatever expression we obtained from V, I am placing it in the dP by dt term. So my final answer would be dP by dt is equal to minus 0.2339 into Q upon CT into H5. Okay, this is a very important concept. This particular question, as question from this particular concept has been asked in GATE. Now let's discuss wellbore storage. Wellbore storage effect is defined immediately after production startup or a shut-in, when the pressure behavior at the early times is dominated by the compressibility and the volume of the wellbore. Again, this particular wellbore storage term is recorded immediately after production start. Okay, that means the well was shut for some period of time, and immediately, and after that, if I'm going for a production, that immediately at some period of time, I will experience some variation in pressure behavior. Okay, so that's one time. And second time, let's say I have produced my well for some time, and now I have gone for a shut-in. At that time, for the initial time of shut-in, I will experience some disturbance in the pressure behavior. Okay, and this pressure behavior disturbance at the early stage of early stage of the shut-in or early stage of the production startup, this particular thing is dominated by the compressibility and the volume of the wellbore. Okay, this is a function of compressibility of the fluid in the wellbore and the volume of the wellbore fluid. At the start of the flow period, my production at the surface is due to the expansion of the fluid in the wellbore and not the reservoir. There is a time lag when the surface production rate becomes consistent with the sand phase rate, and this defines the wellbore storage period. At the shut-in, however, the fluid gets compressed in the wellbore and the rate at the sand phase gradually goes to zero. Now you can see that in this particular diagram. So this particular diagram is for when I'm going for a shut-in. Okay, now in this diagram you can see that I have gone for shut-in. Okay, that means my at the surface, see, initially, again, as I mentioned, initially I would have flown the well at some constant rate. Okay, now at this particular time t, I have shut the well. So you can see my surface flow rate has gone. At surface flow rate is 0. See, my surface flow rate Q at the surface is 0. See, Q at the surface is 0. But because of the property of the compressibility of the wellbore fluid, from the reservoir the fluids are entering into the wellbore. You can see that from the reservoir my wellbore fluid is entering. Okay, and only after some time, see, only after this time, okay, that my Q's at reservoir is 0. Okay, that means I have some additional, for some period of time I will still get my flow from the reservoir into the wellbore. Okay, and this is because of the compressibility of the fluid and the wellbore and the volume of the wellbore. Okay, so this is a case where I have gone for a shut-in, and for some time after the shut-in, that means for very small time only this particular case will be obtained. Now delta V is equal to minus CV into delta P, very obvious, where where V is the volume of the wellbore and C is the compressibility of the wellbore fluid. Okay, now if I want to calculate what would be my dP by dt, where dP W upon dt, this would be my Q minus QSF into B divided by 24 into VB V into C. Okay, where Q minus QF is my surface flow rate difference and the reservoir flow rate difference, and B is the oil formation volume factor, and V is my wellbore volume, and C is my compressibility of the fluid. Okay, now if I'm rearranging it, my capital C would be this, and my capital C or the wellbore storage constant would be this. All right. Okay, now wellbore storage is a function of the wellbore fluids and the wellbore volume. Again, very obvious. Let's look at the note. The compressibility of the fluid in the wellbore is greater than that of the oil in the reservoir conditions because the oil releases gas. Again, a very important and a very basic concept. My compressibility of the fluid in the wellbore, my whatever fluid is there my compressibility will be obviously greater than that when that particular fluid is present in the reservoir. Very obvious case. Okay, let's move further. Okay, now this particular diagram over here, it is for when I have opened the well. Okay, when I open the well, at that time initially whatever surface whatever I am getting, okay, that would be different as compared to after some time. Okay, because initially my flow from the reservoir is nil, so you can see that my flow from the reservoir is nil. Initial time whatever I am getting at the surface, whatever Q surface I am getting, it is governed by whatever fluids were initially present. See, it is governed by whatever fluids that were initially present in the wellbore. Okay, now what it does is that now it gets expanded, and because of this expansion of the fluid in the wellbore, I am getting the surface flow rate. Okay, and again at the sand phase or from the reservoir there is no fluid coming. Only after some time, if I'm giving some time, that is at the end of wellbore storage, then only you can see my flow from the reservoir or the sand phase is coming into the wellbore. All right, now let's look at this graphical representation. You can see that at Q, after some period of shut-in, I have started producing from the surface. Okay, so you can see that from the reservoir or the sand phase, my Q reservoir or the sand phase is 0 when I'm getting surface flow rate. Okay, only after some time, only after this time, I'm getting my Q sand phase. Okay, that means this time period is my end of wellbore storage, and this shaded region indicates my region of wellbore storage. Got it? Again, very simple concept. Now if I want to represent the wellbore storage in the term of an equation, so my Q downhole will be equal to the Q surface plus this term 24 upon B into C into dP by dt, where C is my volume of the wellbore into compressibility of the fluid in the wellbore. So this is the expression for my wellbore storage. Coming to skin, this is a zone of altered permeability in the vicinity of the wellbore. So you can see that let this be my wellbore. So in the vicinity of the wellbore, you can see some altered zone where my permeability will be different as compared to that of the permeability in the bulk formation. Okay, so this particular region is my region of skin. All right. Okay, now delta P skin equal to 0.8 into slope into S, where this particular thing I will be discussing in my Horner plot. In my Horner's plot, I will discuss this thing, where M is my 162.6 Q mu B upon kh into skin. Okay, this particular thing you can see, this is my Horner plot. And this thing I will derive in my build-up session. So whatever slope I am getting from this straight line, the slope would be M. Okay, so I am placing the M value over here into skin, So my delta P skin or the pressure drop at the skin is 142.2 into Q mu B upon kh into skin. Now if I want to discuss what is delta P skin, then my delta P skin will be pressure drop in the skin zone due to permeability of the skin minus the pressure drop in the skin zone due to the actual permeability of the reservoir. Now if I am placing the values, I will get the regular expression. Now this can be separated out from this equation. I can separate this out. So this is my expression for skin, and this is also termed as my Hawking formula. Okay, from this formula questions have been asked from the gate, so it is a very important concept. So gate it has been asked, it is very important. So my skin as per the Hawking formula is K by K skin minus 1 into ln R skin upon Rw, where R skin is my radius of the skin. Okay, you can see that this is my radius of the skin and Rw is my radius of the wellbore. Okay, where K is my original reservoir permeability and K skin is my permeability because of skin, altered permeability because of skin. Alright, okay. Now we know that my delta P actual is equal to delta P ideal plus delta P skin. Okay, this particular case is valid for my skin greater than 0. I have discussed this thing in my nodal analysis numerical session. I have discussed this concept, okay, and this particular formula will change when I have a skin less than 0. Now delta P actual is equal to PR minus PWF dash is equal to PR minus PWF plus delta P skin. Now if I want to discuss what will be my ideal flowing bottom hole pressure, it will be PWF dash is equal to PWF plus delta P skin. Okay, so you can see that this is my delta P skin region, this is my actual flowing bottom hole, and this is my reservoir pressure. So my ideal flowing bottom hole pressure would be PWF F dash is equal to PWF plus delta P skin. Okay, now as we know, my flow efficiency will be equal to the actual productivity index divided by the ideal productivity index. Okay, this is my Fe, where Fe will be equal to actual Pi means Q by, as we know, Pi means Q by delta P. So Q by delta P of actual and Q by delta P of ideal. Okay, now on doing that, I will get my flow efficiency as ideal drawdown divided by actual drawdown. On doing that, I will get my flow efficiency as PR minus PWF dash upon PR minus PWF. So this is my final representation where I have replaced my PWF F dash with PWF plus delta P skin. This is my final expression for flow efficiency. Now flow efficiency can also be written as this, where ln Re by Rw upon ln Re by Rw plus S. So you can see that if I am having a positive skin, my flow efficiency would be less than 1. That means a positive skin means it indicates flow impediment and restriction. Okay, that means it is a damaged well. Now if I am having a skin less than 0 or negative skin, which indicates flow enhancement. Okay, and while well stimulation or because of HF, I would have got this flow enhancement. Okay, so when I have the stimulated well, at that time my flow efficiency will be greater than 1 because my skin is less than 0. Alright, okay. Now let's look at this diagram, beautiful diagram over here. So this particular diagram indicates us the pressure profile. So initially let this be the boundary. Okay, let this be the boundary. From boundary, this is my pressure profile, that is my reservoir pressure is coming down. And because why this pressure is going down? Because as my fluid flows from the boundary or from the reservoir to the wellbore, I will definitely get a pressure drop. Okay, so at the damaged reservoir, so this is the extent of my delta P pressure drop because of the damage. Okay, now let's say if it would have followed a ideal case, so this particular pressure drop would have been my delta P ideal case. Okay, and this is my delta P actual case, where delta P actual equal to delta P ideal plus delta P skin. Okay, now this is for the skin greater than 0. Now let's say if my skin is less than 0, then my delta P actual would be less. Okay, then this is my delta P actual. That means my pressure drop would be less when I am having my skin less than 0, which is very obvious because over there, because my skin is less than 0, I have gone for a stimulated well. Alright, okay, now let's move further. Again, this is the formula for when someone is asking what's the formula for skin and pressure drop. So this would be the formula where delta P skin, that is delta P or pressure drop because of skin, equal to 141.2 Q mu B upon kh into skin. Now formation damage is a condition most commonly caused by wellbore fluids during drilling completion and workover operations. It impairs the permeability of the reservoir rocks, thereby reducing the natural productivity of the reservoir. It is a zone of reduced permeability within the vicinity of the wellbore and as a result of a foreign fluid invasion into the reservoir rock. Again, a very obvious point. So what are the damage mechanism? It may be because of solid plugging, maybe because of clay particle swelling or dispersion, maybe saturation changes, wettability reversal, emulsion blockage, water blocks, fine migration, deposition of paraffins and asphaltene, condensate banking, bacterial growth. Okay, this thing will be discussed in detail when I will take up session on well stimulation. As of now, just I have mentioned it so that you guys can get an overview of what is formation damage. So you can see that, let this be the formation pressure, let this be my static pressure. Okay, now at the near the wellbore region where I am getting a skin, I will get some additional pressure drop. Okay, so this particular figure indicates that. Now for well stimulation, when I am talking about well stimulation, I can have two well stimulation, mainly two, which is one is acidization and second is HF. Okay, generally this HF is applicable when I have a very low permeability reservoir. This particular thing is very much effective. Acidization can be of two types, matrix acidization and acid fracturing. Okay, now in matrix acidization I will be using mud acid, which is mud acid is HF plus HCl. This is my mud acid. So I will be using this mud acid to dissolve the unwanted material present in the near wellbore region. By using this mud acid, I will dissolve this kind of material. So that's HF plus HCl, and this mud acid or the matrix acidization is applicable when I am having a sandstone reservoir. When I am having a sandstone reservoir, at that time I will go for matrix acidization. Now coming to acid fracturing, this acid fracturing over here I will be using HCl only, and acid fracturing is applicable when I am having a limestone reservoir. For a limestone reservoir I will be going for acid fracturing, and over here I will be getting this etched surfaces. I will be getting this ETCH, etched surfaces, because of the property of HCl. As we know, my HCl plus calcium carbonate, what it does that when it reacts, it will dissolve the formation rock. Calcium carbonate will get dissolved and it will leave left behind plus H2O, carbon dioxide. Okay, now because of this, these are the salt and this is a soluble salt. Okay, so this particular thing will get dissolved. Etched surface will be formed. ETCH, etched surface will be formed when I am having a acid fracturing. All right, okay. And this acid fracturing, this we can get this fracturing when my injection pressure is more than the injection pressure. When I am keeping my injection pressure more than the fracture pressure of the formation, at that time I will get acid fracturing. Okay, now let's discuss this hydraulic fracturing case. Again, this hydraulic fracturing, this particular case is applicable when I am having a low permeability reservoir, and again my injection pressure of the fracturing fluid I will keep more than the fracture pressure. Okay, the reason is when I'm satisfying this particular condition, I will create a fracture. See, I'm creating a fracture in the direction perpendicular to the minimum principal stress. So you can see that by this HF, because of this fracture, my fracture has cut through the near wellbore damage zone. Okay, now let's see if I'm having some skin over here. By doing this fracturing, what we are doing is we are bypassing this near wellbore damage zone. Okay, and we are directly entering into the fresh reservoir. All right, okay. Similarly, my matrix acidization, what I was doing is that I was dissolving the near wellbore altered permeability by using this mud acid. Okay, and again my injection pressure, when I'm going for matrix acidization, my injection pressure I will keep less than the fracture pressure, because I don't want my formation to get fractured. Okay, whereas in acid fracturing this is applicable for a limestone reservoir case, and I will keep, and HCl is generally used as a fluid, and I will create etched surfaces. That means I am going for a injection pressure greater than fracture pressure case. All right, okay. Now let's look at this particular graph. This is a very important and a very beautiful graph. Over here, this particular graph is between pressure drop versus wellbore radius. So in this, you can see that this is a pressure profile. Okay, now pressure profile for a high permeability with damage. Okay, if I'm having a reservoir, I have compared two different reservoirs. One reservoir is high permeability reservoir, and second is a low permeability reservoir. So let's say if I'm having a high permeability reservoir, and let's say I am having some near wellbore damage, so this would be my pressure drop in my high permeability reservoir. Okay, now if I'm comparing with a low permeability reservoir with damage, so you can see that my pressure profile over here, see my pressure profile is going very much down. So in a low permeability reservoir, I will have a very high pressure drop as compared to that of a high permeability reservoir. The well stimulation method that we will be using in a low permeability reservoir will be HF. HF will be the most reliable one, and for a high permeability, I will go for a matrix acidization, or if I am having a sandstone reservoir, and I will go for a acid fracturing if I am having a limestone reservoir. Now let's discuss types of skin. Now, skin factor due to inclined well. Okay. Now, in many cases, wells do not penetrate a formation perpendicular to the bedding plane. Okay. When the angle of inclination to the formation is significant, that is, if my angle of inclination to the formation is greater than 10 degree, or reduction in the pressure drop can occur due to the angle of inclination. This pressure drop is defined as skin due to inclination. Example of the situation can be a vertical well that penetrates a dipping formation, and a directional directionally drilled well that penetrates the horizontal formation. Okay, so these two cases will be found. Because of these two cases, I will get an additional skin, that is skin due to inclination of the well. So this is the formula for finding out the skin due to inclination of the well. Over here is this angle with the bedding and the well bore. Okay, and kV by kh. kV is the vertical permeability, kh is my horizontal permeability, h is the height of the reservoir. Alright, okay, this is my top of the perforation, this is my bottom of the perforation. Okay, so this is the formula for skin factor determination when I am having an inclined well. Now let's look at this case where skin factor in horizontal well. So positive skin in an horizontal well has the same effect if the well has a much smaller horizontal length, that is distance from the heel to the toe. That means, okay, the main reason for going for an horizontal well is that, see, by having this horizontal well, what I am doing is that I am getting an increased drainage area. Okay, so this is for horizontal well case. Now let's say I am having a vertical well. Okay, now for vertical well, this will be my drainage area. Obvious, this is my drainage area. Okay, this is the case for a vertical well. This is the case for a horizontal well. So you can see that very clearly. You can see that when I am going for a horizontal well, I will have an increased drainage area. Okay, that's one of the reasons why we are going for an horizontal well, and so that we can get an increased drainage area. For a vertical well, this is my drainage area. Okay, having skin in this particular horizontal well, so this positive skin, what it does is that because of this positive skin, my drainage area will reduce. That means now it will act as if my horizontal length is less because of positive skin. Okay, so this is a graph which represents the effect. For example, if I am having a well with skin 10 and the length of horizontal, the original length of the horizontal section is 3000 feet. Now because of the skin of positive 10, now this horizontal section is acting as if my horizontal section is 1500 feet with no damage. Okay, that means, see, in this particular figure you can see that initially my actual wellbore horizontal wellbore section was 3000 feet. Now because of this skin of 10, it acts as if my wellbore or my horizontal section is 1500 feet only. That means because of the skin, my drainage area has reduced because of the positive skin. Now let's discuss the skin factor due to convergence. Now you can see that this is the reservoir. Okay, now I have perforated in a very limited region. Now, as we can say, if I would have gone for a full penetration, then I would have got this radial flow. Okay, I would have got this radial flow. But because of the limited perforation, I can see that near the wellbore my flow has started to converge. Okay, because of this convergence of partially penetrating well, I can get an additional skin. Okay, now let's discuss the theory. When dealing with partially penetrated wells, flow restriction can occur due to the restricted perforation region accessible to the fluid flow. As the flow streamlines, it converts to fit into the effectively perforated area, as shown in the following diagram. The flowing fluid experiences an additional pressure drop. This pressure drop can be represented as skin factor due to partial penetration, and it is also termed as pseudo skin. So this is the formula for finding out the skin factor due to partial penetration or due to the flow convergence. Okay. Now let's discuss this turbulence. Skin factor due to turbulence. Skin due to the turbulence is additional pressure drop caused by the high gas velocity near the wellbore and only applicable to gas wells. Okay, so you can see that I am expecting radial flow. in the gas wells also, but near the wellbore you can see that there is disturbance, there is turbulence, because my gas is flowing at a high velocity near the wellbore region. So because of this turbulence, I will get an additional skin. Whenever I'm talking about a gas well, because of this additional disturbance, I will have to account for a skin. So for a gas flow, Darcy law is valid for the majority of the reservoir except near the wellbore region when the gas velocity is high. This non-Darcy effect near the wellbore is known as the inertial turbulent flow. Depending on the rate, this effect can be significant and must be accounted for. By the definition, this additional pressure drop or the skin is a function of the gas flow rate and the turbulence factor D of the system. So my apparent skin because of this turbulence would be true skin plus my D into Qg, where D into Qg will be my skin due to the turbulence. Okay, and this capital D is my non-Darcy flow coefficient or a turbulence factor. All right, okay. So now let's look at this particular figure. So this particular figure, let's say if I would have got this Darcy equation, so this would be my trend of the equation. This would be my trend of the pressure profile. But because of this non-Darcy effect, you can see that my pressure drop has increased. Now, skin due to XF or fracture half length. XF is also termed as fracture half length, is defined as the skin equivalent to the fracture half length or is equivalent skin due to the fracture itself. It is derived as follows. As we know, this is my fracture half length. This is my wellbore. This is the fracture that I have created in the direction perpendicular to the minimum principal stress. So this is the permeability of the actual reservoir. This is the width of the fracture width. Okay, and this is my map view. This is my map view. Now, as we know, RWA is equal to RW into ES. Okay, this is the effective wellbore radius. This is the effective wellbore radius. We will discuss that in coming up slide. I will derive this thing. Okay, now RW is equal to RW into E raised to minus S, where RWA is my effective is my apparent wellbore radius, RW is my actual wellbore radius, and S is my skin. Now, as we know for a horizontal well, as we know for a fracture well, my RWA is RWA. This apparent wellbore radius is my XF divided by 2. Okay, now I am placing this XF divided by 2 in this effective wellbore radius formula. So XF divided by 2 equal to RW into E raised to minus S. Okay, now I have taken log on both the sides. So ln XF upon 2 into RW equal to minus S. So this will be my term. This will be my skin factor due to the XF or due to the fracture half length. Okay, this is a very important formula, and this particular thing can be asked in GATE. Now coming to skin on the fracture phase. So when an hydraulic fracture is created, the interface between the fracture and the formation may encounter some permeability reduction, either intentionally, that is leak off additives, or unintentionally, example Relpom effects, non-breaking gel, etc. So this is modeled by assuming the presence of skin on the fracture face as shown in the figure. So in this particular term where I am having a skin on the fracture face, this will be the formula that I will be applying. The skin on the fracture face causes an additional pressure drop that tends to negate some of the benefits of the fracture. Creating the fracture, the main reason is to bypass the near wellbore region. Okay, now because of this fracture face skin, some of the benefit of the fracture gets negated. Okay, so this is how you account for that skin. All right, okay, now let's move further. So this particular thing shows the geometric skin due to partial penetration. Okay, over here I have drilled a well, and let this be the height of the reservoir was H, and I have drilled the well and I only partially drilled the well, and I have partially perforated the well. Okay, now because of this is a geometric skin example because of the partial penetration of the well. Okay, so in the at some distance I will be having radial flow, but near the wellbore my flow will start to converge. Okay, because of this convergence I will get an additional pressure drop. Okay, now because of this incompleted perforated interval, this is the formula for skin, where S would be my apparent skin, S would be my apparent or the total skin, and H by HP into SD, where SD is my damage, skin due to damage, and SP would be my skin due to partial penetration. Okay, so this is how you account for partial penetration skin, where H is my height of the reservoir, HP is the height of the perforation. Okay, now let's discuss gravel pack skin. Again, gravel packing I will be discussing when I discuss well stimulation. Gravel packing is used as a tool for a sand control. For sand control, this gravel packing well completion is used. Okay, now when I'm going for this gravel pack, at that time I will be experiencing an additional pressure drop, and this additional pressure drop can be denoted as gravel pack skin, which is shown by this particular formula. Coming to effective elbow radius, a very important concept, gate level concept. Questions have been asked from this concept. The elbow radius that produces equivalent results to those obtained using a skin factor of 0. It is possible to represent the departure from the ideal zero skin behavior by using the skin effect, or alternatively by changing the value of the effective elbow radius. Now, for a positive skin effect, my effective elbow radius is smaller than the actual elbow radius, and for a negative skin effect, such as obtained from after well stimulation, my effective elbow radius is larger than the actual well. That means, let's say I have a skin greater than 0 case and I have a skin less than 0 case. Let this be my actual elbow radius. Okay. Now, if I'm having a positive skin, that means my effective elbow radius, this is my actual elbow radius. Okay, RW is my actual elbow radius. Now, because of this positive skin, my elbow radius will act as if it is smaller in nature. Okay, that means this would be RW dash. Effective elbow radius will be smaller than the actual elbow radius. Okay, because of positive skin. Again, because of positive skin, I know that my delta P skin will rise. Additional pressure drop will be rise. Okay, now to account for this additional pressure drop, what I have considered is that I have considered that my elbow radius is small. Effective elbow radius is small. Okay, this is my skin greater than 0 case. Now, when I am having a skin less than 0 case, at that time what it behaves is that this is my, let's say this is my actual elbow radius. Now, because of skin less than 0, now my well will behave as if I am having a bigger elbow radius. That means my effective elbow radius is large. Because of skin less than 0, my delta P skin will be less or will be negative, and because of this negative delta P skin, my elbow will act as if it has a larger elbow radius. Okay, now let's derive this. My delta P actual will be equal to delta P ideal plus delta P skin. Now, placing all the values, I will get this term, this expression. Now I can cancel this part, so I will be left out this expression, and my final answer would be this, where RW dash is my effective elbow radius and RW is my elbow radius. Alright, okay. Now let's look at this particular figure. Now this particular figure is for skin greater than 0 case. You can see that this is my actual elbow radius. Okay, this RW was my actual elbow radius, and because of skin, let's say this RS is my skin region, the radius of the skin. Okay, now because of this skin region, my delta P, I am getting an additional delta P. Okay, and now because of this additional delta P, my pressure profile will change and my well will act as if my elbow radius has gone smaller. We'll discuss this case where I am having a skin less than 0. So you can see that this is my actual elbow radius. Now, because of negative skin or because of well stimulation, my elbow will act as if it is having a higher radius. That means my effective elbow radius will be high. Okay, so this is the case for a skin less than 0. Coming to the radius of investigation. Radius of investigation represents how far into the reservoir the transient effect have traveled. A pressure transient is created when a disturbance such as change in rate occurs at the well. As the time progresses, the pressure transient advances further and further into the reservoir. Theoretically, when a pressure disturbance is initiated at the well, it will have an immediate effect, however minimal, at all the points in the reservoir. At a certain distance from the well, however, the effect of the disturbance will be so small as to be unmeasurable. The furthest distance at which the effect is detectable is called the radius of investigation. So you can see that, okay, in this particular diagram, we'll explain whatever has been written in the theory. As we can see that at time, this is at particular time t equal to 0. This is for time 0.01, 1 hour, 100 hours, 10,000 hours. Okay, so you can see that as I am creating a pressure disturbances, okay, with time a pressure disturbances is going farther away from the wellbore. Okay, and now the farthest point, okay, the farthest point at which I can measure this disturbance, that would be my radius of investigation. Okay, so in this pressure profile, this is my farthest point that I can detect. So this becomes my radius of investigation. Okay, now this is the formula to find out my radius of investigation. Okay, where kt upon 948 into 5 mu ct. I will derive this when I discuss diffusivity equation. Okay, so this is the formula for finding out radius of investigation. This is a very gate level formula, gate level concept. Now the concept is valid when I'm having a cylindrical reservoir. Let this be my wellbore, okay, and let this be the distance of radius of investigation, r in r, I and v. Okay, now if I'm told to find out the drainage area, so my drainage area will be pi r square, obviously. Okay, now if I'm told to find out what will be the volume of the drainage, what will be the volume of the reservoir, that will be h. Now bulk volume will be pi r square h. Okay, now if I'm told to find out what will be my pore volume will be pi r square h into the porosity. Alright, so this is how you calculate pore volume from by using the radius of investigation. So that's all for today. Thank you. Jai Hind.